Welcome to the Exec Exchange, 15-minute podcast in which a leader from the water sector shares a story to inspire, educate and inform other water sector leaders from around the globe. My name is Piers Clark, and today my guest is Nuno Brôco, Managing Director for Águas de Portugal Atlântico. Nuno, you were here a few weeks ago sharing some stories, but I've brought you back. You're the first person to come back for a second time on the podcast, and that's because today we're going to be talking about the power outage that happened on Monday, the 28th of April, about a month ago at 12:33 p.m., and it affected all of Portugal and significant parts of Spain. It lasted 10 hours, and in some places much longer. 8 people died, 25 people were injured. It was all over the news, all around the world. And it begged the question of what did you do if you were a water utility? And I think there's many people in the industry thinking, oh my God, what would I have done if that had happened to me? And of course, it did happen to you. So the story I'd like us to get into today is, what was it like? What did you do? And what did you learn from it? So before we get to that, let's just start with a little bit of a reminder. I know many people will have heard it already because of the previous podcast, but a little reminder of ADP, the size of it, the scale of it, who you serve.
Good morning, Piers. Thank you for getting me back to your podcast and to have the opportunity to share this. ADP is a public company. We provide service to around 80% of the national population, both on water and wastewater. And my company, Águas de Tejo Atlântico, we provide service to 2.3 million inhabitants around the Lisbon area. We only work on the bulk wastewater. And in 28th of April, I was in a meeting at 12:30, more or less, Central European time. And someone from the meeting told me, well, we are out of energy. Nothing strange until that.
Yeah. You didn't know it was a national crisis at that stage?
No, and the first minute, no. Then comes some news telling that, well, the problem is national. 10 minutes after, we start to receive some not so true information telling that, yes, France, but also the east part of Europe. And then I start to get more scared with the situation.
Because you thought this was a terrorist attack?
Yes. Because start to circulate into fake news about a cyber attack. And indeed, there was a WhatsApp message from CNN telling that we are being cyber attacked. So the situation started to get concerning, and I called to my head of operations. How are things running or not? I have a funny story about that. My head of operations was in one of our biggest plants in Cascais area. It's designed to serve around 1 million inhabitants. We are in those seasons, so we are not treating at the overall capacity. But yes, we treat every day around 700,000 inhabitants. And he told me, no, what are you doing?
He was not aware at all.
No, he was not aware at all. And why? Because he was in a plant where we have in some days of the year, we have as average an energy autonomy more than 85%. He was in that plant. There was no shutdown.
So the strategy of building sewage treatment works which are energy independent and that there's biogas generation and that which has all been part of your being a green, responsible, sustainable utility actually gave you energy security at this moment of crisis, such that the people on site were not aware that there was a national crisis.
They were not aware. They were more or less working as an island. I was quite surprised. And the main thing is that we have worked all the day because the shutdown takes around 10 to 12 hours. We had the plant using biogas for a whole period, and we had the pumping stations with the emergency electrical generation with fuel all day. The whole problem that we had was regarding communications in that plant. So that is the second part of the story, because when you get an energy shutdown, you have a problem because your machines are not working unless you have emergency electrical generations. But 4 to 5 hours after we had no energy, the communications start to fail.
And this is because the servers that were backing up emails and things like that, those were now running out of power. Is that why?
Yes, because the national communication operators get out of energy, so they have no signals, and we have no communication.
Okay, so then you go completely dark.
Yes, that was for me the most concerning moment, because I lose the contact with my teams. I lose the contact with people from the ground. That moment is not very safe to go driving to another plant. We have some accidents in Portugal. That was a stressing moment.
And what time of the day was that? So the power cut had happened at 12:30 p.m.
Yes. So at the middle of the afternoon,
Okay, so it was only 4 or 5 hours later.
yes, but we get without communications, and we start to have some stress regarding the fuel from our emergency electrical generators because we have no way to communicate with our fuel providers.
And at what stage did you sense that the disaster was now turning around and that things were getting better?
It was more or less in the middle of the afternoon. So we start to get information, and we also had our emergency communication service national that doesn't work as we were expecting. Something interesting to say is that 2 months before we have made a cyber attack simulation.
Okay, so you'd already were prepped for
So-
cyber attacks.
We are never prepared, and we learn that every time that we do it. So we contract a hacker to try to
Break into your system.
yes, and we have learned with their measures to be more safe, but you are never prepared.
So there'll be people listening to this thinking, there but for the grace of God go I, and wondering how they would respond and what learning they could take from your experience. I know it's quite early. This is only a few weeks ago, and there's probably still quite a lot of learning that you're still absorbing from the event. But any headlines of things you would advise others to be considering doing to make sure that they are more resilient and more prepared for an event should something like this hit them?
Yeah, the first thing that I really advise is to test this kind of situation. You will learn a lot. We have real tests, and we have found small things that you should think before, such as some systems connected with the emergency system that worry, that don't want. Some of those devices with the experience everyone has with the mobile phone and everywhere, every time. So we lose your perception about the need of alternative communication systems. Well, there is a bunch of things that you can do, and you will never find out if you don't test. So in this moment, we are recovering from the event. We are making our diagnosis, and we are setting 3 kind of measures. Those that are very immediate, we can do it right now. Those that need some investment, we are reanalyzing again the emergency plan, what we should put as supply the energy by emergency system. We have some investments on that will be made for next coming years. And then we are also working in our business continuity plan. We are revising it, and it's very important to have it and to plan these kind of situations.
Nuno, it is wonderful to have heard firsthand the insights of how you experience it. As I say, I suspect there's lots of people listening to this thinking, there but for the grace of God go I. And those words of wisdom you've just shared, I'm sure will help many others. Thank you for taking the time. You have been listening to the Exec Exchange with me, Piers Clark, and my guest today has been Nuno Brôco from ADP, sharing the enlightening and somewhat horrific story of how to deal with the power outages that happened that affected all of the Iberian Peninsula on the 28th of April, 2025. Thank you for listening. See you soon.